Welcome to the iHemp Hour. My name is Dave Craybill. I'm with iHemp Michigan. iHemp Michigan's mission is to educate, inform, and promote the research, development, and cultivation of industrial hemp. We're excited to have a long-lost friend join us again today. But before we get to our guest, Hunter Buffington, let's go around the horn here a little bit. Blaine Bechtold, what's going on over there on the west side of Michigan?
You know, summer's finally here. The pool is actually open, so I'm ready to go for a dip after the show myself. But yeah, things are going good. We're still plugging ahead with our hemp building workshop, so that's happening. And got a lot of fun things to share today in the news part. So, and a great recipe for the weekend for sure. So, Yes, sir.
All right, let's hear from the dark side, from Mike Brennan from 420 Post.
Yep, the Darth Vader of Michigan. So, yeah, we've done well in March and April. Sold $500 million worth of adult use and some medical cannabis. Medical's only about 10% these days. So, and we're going into summer, and I was just saying to everybody before we started, all them tourists will be coming up here, and hey, 40% of them are looking for cannabis. We just looked at a survey, so we can fix them right up.
Yeah, there's a little supply out there, isn't there?
Oh, there's no problem with supply. It's demand is the problem. So prices have crashed. I'm sure just what happened in Colorado. Everybody came into the market, flooded the market with product. Prices crashed. Now we're going through consolidation. Yeah, but I think we're at the bottom. We're at about $90 an ounce now. Some people are predicting that's about $1,200 a pound roughly. Some people are predicting by the end of summer, because of the increased tourist demand, it'll be back up around 18. We'll see.
Well, if any of those tourists are looking for a place to stay, we've got a condo here in Grand Haven, Spring Lake. Great destination spot. Sleeps 14, so you can have a big old party. So
there you go. Blaine's we're gonna have a party at Blaine's house.
And it's not just down the road, so we could do that. Yes, we could.
And we'll get to the news a little bit later, and we'll talk a little bit about some opportunities maybe to move some industrial hemp crop as well. There's some things happening there.
Absolutely, a lot of great things going on there.
It's happening. My mission now is to be a little more positive about things, and with Hunter's help, we're going to figure out how to decode government policy, because Hunter Buffington is Director of Agriculture Policy Solutions. They're an industrial hemp policy and supply chain expert who initiated her career in sustainable development, very good stuff, before focusing on the emerging hemp industry in 2013. Her experience in the application of open systems to create sustainable development and climate action plans for Fort Collins and Colorado gives her a unique understanding of food systems, agriculture, and emerging industries. And industrial hemp is certainly an emerging industry. So it's great. I'm not going to read this entire thing, but we've got Hunter's been around. She's been on the iHemp Hour before. You've had it since the last time we've talked to you. I think you've changed careers a couple of times. So why don't you just bring us up to date on where you're at, what you're working on? It's so good to see you still involved in an industrial hemp, because so many of the people that I started my hemp journey with have fallen by the wayside.
Yeah, it's a much smaller family, I think, than it used to be, especially at the beginning. And thanks for that, Dave, because I did not realize that it's been 10 years. So,
10 years.
Yeah, it's been a little while. So I, spent quite a lot of time in Colorado working with the Colorado Hemp Industries Association way back at the beginning in the Department of Agriculture, promulgating hemp rules. It's been amazing here in Colorado because there's been a lot of emphasis on stakeholder participation. So over the course of the history of hemp in Colorado, there's been a lot of work to be done, creating regulations and really figuring out how to hopefully utilize what's already here on the food side of the industry. I was also the executive director for the Hemp Feed Coalition. I think that's the last time that we chatted.
Yeah.
So still waiting to get the final acceptance from the FDA Center for Veterinary Medicine on that laying hen application. still. So we've been told any day. HFC is still leading that work. So that's an interesting update to share with you guys. But obviously that process is taking a lot of time and work. And
that's just one category of one animal.
One ingredient and one animal category. Yes. But I have some exciting news to share with you guys. In this, I ended up going to Santa Fe Farms. I think many of us remember Santa Fe Farms.
Yep.
Stephen Glucksberg, bless his heart, passed. Element 6 dynamics. But I'm happy to share with you that one of Stephen's real goals and why he Santa Fe was to get chickens fed hemp, right? So Dynamics had a great team, myself included in that team, and I directed the completion of applications for all life cycles of chickens. We had hemp seed meal and hemp seed oil in Kentucky and by memorandum in Texas. No one knows this because we haven't really told anyone, but we have some exciting news, and I'm happy to share that with you guys because now we're starting to open markets in a state like, hopefully that's going to be a real opportunity for scalability. And Texas is, obviously a large agriculture producer. So we also added those ingredients for horses in both states too. So while we don't have real approval, there is some good news to share. And that we started agriculture policies was to start really focusing.
Texas and what was the other state?
Kentucky.
Texas and Kentucky. Okay.
You mean Mitch is allowing that?
Any what?
Mitch is allowing that in Kentucky?
I mean, there is a process in Kentucky to have the Department of Agriculture and their feed control officials review new ingredient definitions. And so we worked with the department and AFCO. I work closely with AFCO anyways. All the definitions have been worked through with their investigators too. So it was a great opportunity, and Kentucky was on board.
Okay.
It was a lot of work, right? Imagine that. But
so can you help us in Michigan here? I've been wanting to get a hold of Texas and talk about that with them, but can you help us with Michigan and getting some language and getting that ball rolling here? I mean, we have a huge amount of poultry in this state. Huge amount.
Yeah. So the nice thing about the way that we did it with the feed control officials in the Department of Agriculture is that it wasn't policy. It was presented directly to the regulators, along with all of the analytical chemistry that they needed to know that they could actually enforce safety and look at these products. So it was a different avenue. But if we can investigate and find out if Michigan, will review new ingredient definitions, I've got one. We're ready. So that would be a great opportunity for everyone, right? Little grain market development.
We could do well then after I don't want to get into it now, but let's definitely talk about that and in the next week here. I want to get that rolling. Yep.
I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, and I see that they came out with the USDA I was going to talk about this in the news, but I was going to talk about it here, I guess. USDA study shows hemp seed cake viable alternative for cattle feed. So I just saw that the other day come out. This was done with the USDA and
North Dakota State.
North Dakota State. I was trying to find it in here. I want a college in there. So, yep. USDA said the research team found that the concentration of compounds in meat products contribute only a small factor of the total amount of CBD and THC considered safe for consumers by global regulatory organizations. So awesome. This is awesome.
Yes.
So we're getting some movement there. That's awesome. That's great.
I mean, we are, but we still have some things to overcome. And one of the things that I wanted to talk with you guys about is what's been happening state by state with these serving sizes for THC. You're seeing a lot of ratios and even some age gates being established, language like non-detectable limits being used. And I want to make sure that folks are actually paying attention to what's happening, because when the word zero is used by regulators, that's incredibly problematic. And I just want to point out that we all know it's 0.3% Delta 9 THC, right? So in our world, telling us that zero is a number is not achievable. Meanwhile, we have legislators that are using what I would consider perhaps morally delinquent rhetoric. I told you guys I was going to get a little saucy, but when we have politicians.
All right, bring it on, Hunter. Bring it on.
I mean, so politicians saying they're saving the children, protecting them from THC, while also allowing the export of products that are banned in our state to be safe harbored, really should be questioned. That should be questioned. So, and I went straight to a lot of the drama, but you know, I had mentioned earlier that Colorado's done a lot of stakeholder work. There was a task force that put together recommendations based on a bill last year. A number of my colleagues from both the hemp and the marijuana industry went to the Senate hearing for this bill, thinking that we were actually going to be celebrating unification between the marijuana and the hemp industry with this bill and the task force recommendations. And 39 amendments later, it is unrecognizable, and it could literally pull full spectrum whole plant products off the shelves.
Wow.
In Colorado. This is the Colorado, what they're trying to pass.
Yeah. They did. It's on the governor's desk.
Well, I guess I thought that got resolved and got taken care of, but obviously not.
No. It was not resolved, and it's not just here in Colorado, right? We've had a lot of conversations about labeling products that contain trace amounts of THC. Meanwhile, 10 parts per million is what was established by the FDA for hemp hearts, hemp oil, and hemp protein powder, right? We've got regulation for those items. So this continuation of this request for zero is now weirdly associated with these policies that are passing about other hemp products. That's why I'm concerned.
Do they understand that when they go, a CBD product, when you go to zero, it's processed down to just a white powder, and China is known for flooding markets with
white powder.
I mean,
different white powder.
I mean, so ironically, Dave, my answer to that is almost yes, because with the 20-to-1 ratio that was put forth for under 21, my farmers that have been working on their genetics since the beginning, right? Years of investment and hard work and risk, I might add, their formulations that are as a whole plant extraction are going to have added CBD. They're going to have to be diluted in order to meet that 20-to-1 ratio. And that was acknowledged by one of the amendments that came forth was acknowledged by the amender. There was recognition that that's what was going to happen.
So what's going on? Why is this happening? What's your theory on that?
Well, it was an interesting observation for me, and there's really been no journalism done on this. It's been very quiet. No one has reported what was said on the Senate floor. No one has asked who the hemp industry was being represented by. That's the big question there, is who were the ones that had the opportunity to craft 39 amendments. This all happened in a 2-week time frame.
Have you gone to the Rocky Mountain News or the Denver Post about this? Have you talked to them?
I did reach out to one journalist that was recommended to me. Apparently he interviewed one other person, and none of us have seen or heard anything about it. So it's interesting. And there was a report that said that the hemp industry was happy that this represented the stakeholder, a lot of hemp stakeholders. And the reality of that is that it wasn't a lot of stakeholders. It was really special interest that had the opportunities to have those conversations, and literally we're writing amendments. And it wasn't the hemp industry alone. This is also happening on the marijuana side.
Sounds like pharmaceutical lobbyists to me, but I'm only guessing.
I mean, there was definitely there were lobbyists there that were representing their own interests. Absolutely.
Well, I just read an article this week about DEA now wants to promote the fact they want to bring it from 0.3% to 0.1%. It's crazy. I mean, they were told to stay out of this bill. There was reasons why they were not allowed into this hemp thing, the industrial hemp world. And now they want to control it again.
Yep. Yeah. And that's another reason why this is a slippery slope. And Mike, I would love your thoughts, because part of the influence was really coming from the marijuana industry to pull these products into dispensaries.
Oh, is that what's going on? Yeah, we have the same issue here with some of the big players trying to drive the little players out of the market, kind of clear the path so they can control everything. So,
yeah. And that was also happening with another special interest. Imagine that. So
yeah,
the unfortunate thing for me is we're seeing this happening across states at the time when the Farm Bill is being considered. And we were talking a little bit about politics before we went live, and just what a hot mess it is. And so I am very concerned about this rhetoric that I'm hearing. It almost absolves them from looking at science, and we've been down that road before. So I think we need to be paying attention to what is happening in our states, and really, as the hemp industry, make sure that we're present. Make sure they're not talking to two people that are representing all of us, because it's happening.
yeah.
Yeah.
In my venture into hemp plastics with the Frisbees, we got involved in this export program and went through some classes. And part of it, we talked to a representative from the Department of Commerce. And I asked the question about CBD and hemp, what their feeling was in legalization of marijuana. And basically they said that, we're not going to deal with that because we're focused on the opioid crisis. We need to solve the opioid crisis first. And it's like, well, wait a minute,
That's what CBD does, right? So.
And I see in hemp today, Kurt does such a nice job with this newsletter. There's an agent of the U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency. He was fired in 2019 because he failed a drug test because he was using CBD and failed a random test. I haven't read the entire article here, but basically, these people that are trying to heal themselves, and here's a natural product that can help them. And there's just like you say, there's no science, no logic behind their actions. I'm hoping that this case maybe will shine some light on it, and we need some major developments to happen. We need to make a lot of noise.
I couldn't agree more. And one thing that I didn't mention is I have been able to work with Realm of Caring, because the impact on their patient community is profound. There's veterans organizations that are also going to be impacted. When you tell a parent that this product is now going to have to be distilled or diluted, with this CBD, when it's something that's been working for them for 5 years, right? That becomes very concerning for those parents. And Colorado has a large population of what we call, medical refugees. So
that was where people had to go to get help for their children.
Yep. So
and a lot of, on my side of the 0.3 spectrum, a lot of vets smoke pot to help them with their PTSD, kind of calms them down from all that experience they had in war, and they're also having difficulties too getting the plant when they need it.
Yeah, I think this is going to really benefit a few entities. And again, it puts a lot of pressure on the farmers, right? It's my big pain point. I think you guys know this about me. My real desire is to make sure that farmers are somehow in the room when regulations and policies are being made that directly impact them and impact them first, right? So when I consider, the investment in creating plant medicine, because it is a genetic investment, right? It's all the way from years of those investments to how you're growing it, to how you're processing it, and to just remove them from the marketplace and prevent that access. And then this idea that there is an age gate at all for these products, again, that have been on the market since, some places 2014, if not before that, and no poison, no toxin reports, right? What are we doing? We're confusing the issue.
Yeah,
and the
that's what lobbyists do. But go ahead. So
yeah. Oh no, sorry. I was just going to point out that the entire point of the bill was to control intoxicating cannabinoids. I didn't even mention that because it doesn't do that.
Wow.
Yes, it's amazing how they how they like to pass bills for one, but totally blindsided or disregard the other side of things. So it's just crazy, absolutely crazy. And to go back to that, what Dave was talking about. So yeah, the guy was he was let go because he failed the test on it, and it was CBD, and so the agency had not had any restrictions or requirements before that they made a notice of, but after he got fired, they did. So I hope he wins the case. I hope he does. It's kind of crazy when you have to do that, and there's other movement around right now, even in Michigan, to stop or not have to have the drug testing for employees when they're hired. That's happening all over. Matter of fact, I think one of the articles that came out this week that employees are testing higher for THC than they ever have. But we're talking about a non-intoxicating product here, right? We're talking about CBD. We're not even going down that road, the other road. So,
well, they're having a hard time filling the civil service in general, and because people do use CBD or THC. I mean, if they're doing it on their own private lives, separate from work, but I mean, it stays on your body, lingers for the test. Now they're making noise about maybe we should take a look at that because they can't recruit enough people for the civil service right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
Or any of these industries for that matter. I mean, I can understand it if you're driving a truck or a train or something like that, or heavy equipment. Okay, I can get that. But if you're sitting in the office, come on, so.
Yeah.
So Hunter, let's go back positive, because remember I said I'm going to try.
We're going to be positive.
Okay, positive part of the
good news too,
Let's
right?
talk a little more about Texas and Kentucky. What are the next steps there? What do you see happening now?
Well, a couple of things, because the opportunity to start small, right? So what the nice thing about Kentucky is that there is an established supply chain for hemp as human food, right? So what this is going to do is it's going to create an opportunity to add additional revenue streams for those processors that are still here. Hopefully that will also encourage acreage production when we have folks that actually want a steady supply, to have the market, right, in order to encourage farmers to actually plant it. So I'm really excited about starting at a state like Kentucky where it does have those things. And the idea is to build that market and then be able to scale past Kentucky as we bring on other states. Right. So the interesting thing about Kentucky and Texas is that they represent very different types of agriculture when it comes to hemp. Right. So there's been some grain production. There's been the talk of triple crops, a lot of talk of triple crops in Texas, but fiber has been a lot of the focus. So what we start to have is an emphasis on a new infrastructure in Texas, which is a great spot because they've got the cotton industry. And one of the other byproducts that a lot of people don't think about in the cotton industry is the ginning process, crushing the seeds. So there's good potential that we could also bring, some of those old facilities back to life. But when we think about acres and Texas, like that's just a great opportunity with the growing season, with the benefits we see with row cropping and alternating crops. So we're excited about those two things. And like I said, they're different from the standpoint that Kentucky's got a lot of this infrastructure in place. So we're excited about that. And then Texas is just a whole different environment. When we are talking with policymakers and you say Texas approved hemp as animal feed, right? It's just a different conversation than if you say Kentucky did. So there's some real excitement about that in Texas. I will say that the rodeo community has very much embraced hemp products for their animals. So that horse community in Texas is also really attractive. They have had great experiences with their roping horses and their cutters. So
now, Hunter, are they using CBD products in that, or are they using feed products in that? Is it feed products they're using?
Well, so Blaine, so just remember that it's not legal to market hemp for animals, but there's definitely folks that are feeding materials, that's in their farm ecology. And then we do know folks that are giving their horses hemp and CBD supplements. There's definitely dosage amounts out there and products that are really well developed. And the National Animal Supplements Council has been tracking any adverse reaction reports for hemp products. And I can't remember how many it was. It was millions, either 3 or 6 million administrations of a hemp product. They don't discriminate. They just say hemp product, but I think everybody knows that that's probably CBD, right? Mm-hmm. And 6 adverse reactions, no toxicity, no poisonings, out of millions of doses. So we've got pretty great confidence in these products as well.
Yeah. Well, you can go to the grocery store and buy hemp hearts and put it on your oatmeal. I mean, it's just silly, but
it is.
The fiber. Hunter, you mentioned the fiber. Do you have any insight on germination rates and their success in Texas with fiber? Because I've heard some reports where they've struggled a bit.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of real good insight to offer you. What I can say is I've heard that the Australian fiber varieties seem to be doing better, obviously a little less water dependent. And that's about all I've got right there, is that those seem to be doing well. But like most things in hemp, we need to try it first and plant it a couple of times, right, before we mortgage the farm to make $1 million.
So Hunter, I'm going to talk a little bit about your business and what you're doing and what you can offer as a service to people. Let's talk about that a little bit. So Agricultural Policy Solutions.
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
So I am just really blessed to be surrounded by greatness, like on this call, but I am also really excited about, after 10 years, I feel like I've got a really great group of folks that I can rely on. Being able to not have to know everything is much more comfortable than, trying to figure everything out. It's a lot, right? So I'm really excited that Jessica Scott, who spent time, we first met, both of us as executive directors for HIA associations. She was in Indiana. And then we worked together under the Hemp Feed Coalition. And that's when we met Tillery Sims. Tillery Sims is in Texas and has been a real advocate and is a 6th generation farm family. So really comes to it from an understanding of what it is to farm and really helps make that connection in Texas. So between the 3 of us, it's really quite the dream team. I do a lot of work on policy and then systems applications to supply chains, as well as the regulatory side of it. Jessica has done a lot of really great work on the food supply side, developing markets domestically and internationally. And she was part of the team that developed the applications that were accepted. Tillery is really been successful with grants and partner development between associations and looking at where there's opportunity to interact with government agencies. So between the three of us, what we're really hoping to do is to start to support new ingredients. So not just hemp, right, but other new ingredients that have climate smart or sustainability applications that just haven't been pursued because there's some weird block. For example, biochar. Biochar is not approved to be fed to animals, even though there's not millions, but lots of years, decades at least, of research that shows that it helps the biome. There's an allowance, but it's never been approved. So there's a lot of opportunities in our agriculture system to start thinking about how do we use a crop like hemp, or even the outputs from a crop like hemp, to make sure that the farmers are making enough money to continue to farm. It's a big issue, and we've got to start increasing their margins, giving them additional streams of revenue. And part of that is overcoming some of these regulatory and policy issues.
Awesome.
Pretty excited.
Well, you certainly have a very diverse background that has led you up to this. That's for sure. That is absolutely for sure. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So now we have some people that are starting to work with feeding some biomass and some other stuff to other animals, non-conventional animals. I'm going to put it that way. The ones you don't normally see in the marketplace. So, and they've anecdotally, right, seeing the results that they've worked with these animals for years, they understand that the animals are just doing better, incorporating this into their feed situation. So, yeah, it's out there.
Yeah,
it's out there. Mm-hmm.
It is.
I think we still suffer from the reefer madness stuff that's been going on for 80 years.
Absolutely.
It gets back to an educational thing. Come on, and I think it's changing, but I don't know. It really varies from state to state. I don't have to tell you that, Hunter, right? Some states like Michigan are more open to these things versus other states, but Colorado should be real. I'm surprised you're having so many issues in a state like Colorado, which is pretty laid back, kind of wouldn't say liberal, but certainly more purple or bluish, and you're still having these issues, right?
Yeah, and I literally used the word reefer madness myself, Mike, over the last couple of weeks, trying to describe what happened, because there was no science there, right? The science had been presented and then just set aside. So that's because it was much more fantastic, right, to save the children and be concerned that they're going to have any THC, right? Yeah. So that's I agree with you, and I just don't want this to spread to the Farm Bill considerations.
Now, your governor's a Democrat, isn't he, if I recall?
Oh, yeah.
He is, yeah.
And if this bill is on his desk, is he going to veto it or is he going to sign it?
My understanding, what I've been told, is that he's more than likely not going to sign it, but it will become law because it will time out, because he won't veto it.
Oh, he's chickening out then. That's called usually that's a pocket veto, but maybe it's different in Colorado. So.
Well, this one's a desk approval.
Okay.
Yeah. So rather than a pocket veto, it's the opposite.
Oh,
it's in the pile of ones that get to go forward.
Oh, okay. Got it. So that political science major when I was in college comes out every now and then, so.
I appreciate that.
So what's the next step after he doesn't sign it and it gets approved? Is it start right away? Is there a whole other process they got to go through to have that happen? Or
so we've been told that there's going to be rulemaking that's going to occur, and that'll be interesting to see if they use a stakeholder group, which I said was historic, right, in Colorado, but then they set that aside. So it'll be interesting to see if they do that again, if they bring the marijuana and the hemp industry stakeholders together to do that, or if it'll be initiated behind closed doors by the agencies, and then we get to have a public viewing, if you will. But I really want to emphasize that this is one of those moments in the history of hemp where I think we really need to educate our retailers, right? Because it's the way that they perceive that bill, right, that is going to determine what happens to our products. If a retailer says, oh, this might have THC in it because it's hemp, but it doesn't have it on the label, and I don't know enough to realize that this is hemp seed milk, right? What's their decision? If they have a product that says it's not 20-1, do they put it behind locked doors by the cigarettes, right? So it's these things that I think are really going to decide our fate and our future, right? So this is why I say I think it's a moment in time where the best way to combat reefer madness is with our dollars and demand that those products are still there. And, you know, make sure that we're educating our policymakers as much as we can. But that's difficult because they're not open to it. Back to that reefer madness. Like, how do we influence the folks that don't want to be influenced?
You vote them out of office. That's what you do. I mean, have you taken a poll in the state to see what the electorate wants to do?
I mean, there was overwhelming testimony every time that we had the opportunity to come together. And I'll share, gentlemen, that the most damning amendments were made on the floor after it was far too late for us to have any influence. So that's where I hope our dollars, right, can keep the retailers. Because if we get some retailers that have some clout to say, we're not moving these products, right? These products have been on our shelves for 5 years. They're staying. Whole Foods, natural grocers, just a little pressure, right? But that's where I think that's where I'm optimistic that we can keep our market growing, right? And then this new approval acceptance for animal feed in these 2 states, you know, those little battles are moving the dial. So, you know, just keep pushing that boulder up the hill. But I think we need to do a better job of working to represent ourselves. Do you guys think that too? Like, I just feel like we are watching a lot of these things happening and we're not raising a ruckus. And we couldn't get the journalists to pay attention either.
Well, a lot of us have kind of run out of steam and resources to continue the fight. You know, we're not getting any support, you know, to do what we've done in the past. So it's made it rather challenging.
Yeah. I mean, we're trying to fight the fight here, but you know, when your acres go down so much, it's very hard for the state to look at it seriously. You know, we know, you know, we've seen it quite an insurgence, and this year we're really pushing for the information on the hemp building products, you know, using that. So, and then we're of course going to talk a little bit about story a little bit, but Pennsylvania, there's a institute in Pennsylvania. They got $1 million grant to do some stuff. So,
well, in Pennsylvania, they don't charge for a license, if I recall from an earlier conversation, right? And whereas here it's what, $12.50 or $14.50 or something like that.
Yep.
Well,
$12.50 for the growing license.
Yeah, and then $13.50 to be able to sell it. So yeah.
I mean, I'm sure Hunter knows the history, but I mean, what, 4 or 5 years ago, there was a lot of people involved in hemp, and then the Department of Ag here jacked the prices up, and everybody bailed, right? I mean, that's my understanding.
Well,
that and the market itself.
Yeah, the market.
That's really what happened there. But the hemp grain and the hemp fiber, we know where that's going to go.
Yeah.
When we get the approval for this livestock and all the other stuff, we know where that's going to go.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Well, and then of course you got the auto industry. They're still making noise, although I haven't seen a big commitment on the part of them. I mean, the high price cars like Porsche and Mercedes are using hemp composites for interior, exterior parts, but so far I haven't seen a lot of action on the part of Ford or GM to get involved in that. Although I do know that a couple of the tier ones, like Lear, were looking for 6,000 acres of hemp so they could experiment with it. And I think they're supplying Ford and GM, but I've got to run that down and see what's going on with that.
Well, we've got it figured out how to grow it and harvest it and process it. You know, we need obviously some processors here in the state. That needs to happen as well too. And all this needs to happen.
But there are a lot of states where processing facilities are being added, so that is developing.
There's certainly more now than when we began. I remember there was initially 3 grain processors, to your point, and there's quite a few. I think building that infrastructure on the grain side will also help us to start to build infrastructure for the fiber as well. But that grain market, I feel like, is ready to go. But animal feeds where we start needing 1 million acres.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
so huge.
And it's going to happen. It's inevitable. So those with the funds and the means or the connections, call us. We'll make it happen. There's gold in those hills.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And
or at least a lot of green, right? So
A lot of green.
Yeah.
A lot of green.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that's happened just recently is David mentioned a little earlier. I'll bring it up now. We have people that are currently looking for biomass and calling us and saying, "Hey, do you know people that have it?" and that kind of thing. Some of the biomass that we're dealing with, the one particular one, it happened to get seeded. It was not a very well maintained crop as far as growing and getting the great CBD content, but because it has the seeds in it, it has a great nutritional value. And so we are having people that are calling. So if anybody out there is sitting on some biomass that looks, they need to get it moved, and they're looking to get it moved. Now, we're not going to promise you, the prices that they were talking, a few years ago for things, but there is some movement in there as well. And also on the distillate and the crude side too, that supply is starting to get used up, and there is some movement in that area. So, yeah. So if anybody has any, get hold of us. iHemp Michigan. We'll help you get it figured out for sure. Yes, we will. Yeah.
good news.
Yeah, it is very good news.
Yes.
Very good news. Yeah.
I love it.
Hunter, anything else you want to leave us with? I mean, we're just kind of moving along the show here, but we're going to get ready to have Mike talk, and I'm going to give my great recipe for this weekend for people. So.
That's right. You got to stick around for that, Hunter. So you get to meet the emperor. So
yeah. Well, and I have the opportunity to hear about the recipe too, so I'm definitely going to hang around and hear the rest of that. I just want to say, I know Dave was like, we're going to stay positive, and there was definitely some moments of less positive things that we had to talk about. But I would say, in my experience with other emerging economies, that we're right on track with all of the same barriers that they went through. It's almost textbook. The difference for us is going to be, again, making sure that we keep these markets open, and states like Michigan that aren't scared, right? Like Kentucky and Texas, and those opportunities that as we can make them for our farmers, that's what's going to keep us going forward. And it's good work. Let's keep doing it.
I want to let people know too that a great opportunity has presented itself this year. Phil Montgomery is kind of putting a nice team together for the Farm Progress Show in Decatur, Illinois. Last week of August is when this is. They're actually going to have, they're giving them some outside ground to actually plant some industrial hemp on. We're going to be doing grain and fiber mostly. And then they also have an inside booth that they're going to be doing. So if anybody is interested and would like to be part of that in any way, shape, or form, either speaking or providing products or material, that kind of thing, let us know. That's a great opportunity. I mean, to get in front of all these farmers and show them what's really happening out there and what really will be happening. So anybody wants to be part of that part of that party, part of that fun, let us know. We'll get you involved in that. So, yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, I think it's time to hit the news.
Okay.
Speaking of industrial hemp, in another state, of course, Pennsylvania gets a $1 million grant to develop industrial hemp engine. Now, as I was reading through this, I didn't read through this closely enough till now. This grant made possible by the Chips and Science Act. Now, that's the one that they were using to build microprocessors. So somehow they wrangled money out of that money that's coming to the States to also do this hemp engine. That might be one way to approach it. Because I know Michigan's, heck, we just got a big Ford and a Chinese company are using that money to build a chip plant here in Michigan. Heck, if it's available for hemp, maybe it's something to take a look at, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that would be one thing. Another thing is, as I was talking before the show, we're still struggling with oversupply, and Detroit's just starting to come online. That'll soak up some of that demand. But there's a lot of folks that are in receivership right now, and there's a lot of folks that aren't paying their bills right now because I hear it from everybody. And there's some movement at the state legislature now to CRA has proposed stripping licenses from cannabis companies that don't pay their vendors. So there's a lot of heat being put on the state to do something because everybody's, you deliver services you're not getting paid for, and everybody says the same, hey, I don't have any money. Well, the state's saying, well, then I guess you can't stay in business. Now, this is not official yet. They're just looking at it. But it's caught a lot of people's attention because a lot of people are owed a lot of money for a variety of things in the state, and people aren't paying their bills. So it's interesting to see that for Hunter, that's the Cannabis Regulatory Agency, the CRA, is now taking a serious look at that. Let's see. And as we alluded to, go ahead.
I said, and that would be quite unprecedented if they do that. There's no other.
You don't pay your bill. Even if you go into if you've been sued, they can take your license for that. And that's the Brian Hanna effect. As we all know, Brian Hanna, the new sheriff in town, he was brought in to really police a lot of this stuff that Andrew Brisboe wasn't policing. And is he going overboard? I don't know. But anyway, so that one. And then public comments, as we talked about earlier, for state workers. Members of the Michigan Civil Service Commission are now accepting comments from the public on proposed changes to the state's drug testing regulations. And again, it gets back to they're just having a hard time recruiting because they make everybody take a test, right? And some people, even if they're just using CBDs, they can't join the civil service. And so the fact that there's just such a worker shortage now is forcing them to rethink this sort of thing. And then also there's some other changes there's a lot of changes afoot right now. There's another session that's going to come up in next month about changing some of the regulations for marijuana rules. And it's a real long list. You'll have to go to our website, 420post.com, to actually look at it. Because when I clicked on the link to go to the CRA website, and it ran for like 4 pages. So they're looking at a lot of rule changes, which, we've been doing this since 2019, and now we know what works and doesn't work. But they're encouraging the public to participate in the rulemaking, which I think is a really good thing because we have a real high rate of use here in Michigan for cannabis or CBD. It's like half the population does one or the other, has at least tried one or the other. So I think the public is going to be driving that. And that's my hot news for this week.
All right, Mike. So I'll touch a little bit more on that grant you talked about, Mike. So since 2017, so this can be positive, right? We're making things positive today.
That's right.
Since 2017, the hemp sector has seen significant support to help get it moving again. The most recent assistance is in the $1 million Regional Innovation Engines Development Cash announced last week, which was awarded to Vital Plant Science Research for the development of an industrial hemp engine. Now, don't think of a hemp engine as you think of an engine. The initiative will support the manufacture and development of innovative hemp-based products for application in green building construction, packaging, fabrics, renewable energy, and land remediation. So we've got a request out to them, try to get them on the show, and hopefully we'll have them on in a couple of weeks. Hopefully,
if this money is coming out of the CHIPS Act, then hey, maybe Michigan can do the same thing, right?
Well, maybe we can here, we talked a little bit about the cattle feed, the study for that, which was interesting that they found no effects on that. They fed these cattle for 111 days. And that's, if you get into the details of it, it's quite interesting of how they kind of took the animals and how they did the study on them. So just another positive thing, I think, for being able to move this forward. And so the
Blaine, that was the USDA that participated in that study. That's exciting because hopefully it means that we're starting to consider moving past, if we can feed it to the animals, to how we regulate the products so we can eat them. Right.
Yeah.
So,
it doesn't do much good to feed it to the animals if you can't slaughter the animals, right? You know, so
yeah.
Oh boy.
So we'll look forward to how that all plays out. So absolutely on that. So, and then we talked a little bit about this earlier too. The CRA has posed 33 pages of recommendations that they're putting out there for comment on. Most of it has to do, obviously, with the marijuana side of things, but they do have one that talks about CBD, and so it reads. This is on page 8. If you want to look at that,
it's
prohibit
a long
the
list.
conversion. Prohibit the conversion of intoxicating cannabinoids to intoxicating cannabinoids CBD to THC, and the sale or transfer of these items unless the CRA approves conversion, subject to specified parameters, including submission of peer review studies and the studies that include known outcomes of human consumption over time. And the reason for this is the requirement needs to be in the rule to ensure transparency and enforceability. Requiring supplemental submission of studies of conversion process ensures that other reputable organizations may have reviewed any proposed process. So that's really the hot one for CBD that's touched in all of that they just put out. So if you want to make some comments on that, they can. Of course, there is no, at this point, there is no conversion yet from CRA. So on that. Again, we talked about, again, for anybody's out there with some biomass, sitting on some biomass, please let us know. We have been getting inquiries, and we'd like to help people move that product if they have it. And then the other big one, and it was just a small article that came out, but we'll have to keep our eye on this and see what's going on, is the DEA once again raising their thoughts on, they want to change it from 0.3, which is what Congress passed, to 0.1%. And we've been trying to get it to 0.1%. So anyways, those are some of the hot items that are going on for this week. So yes, sir. All right. Are we ready? Are we ready?
A drum roll, please.
Yeah. We got to dress the
part. You should have walk-up music like they do at the ballpark, you know, when the baseball players are walking up to the plate, they have walk-up music. We need to get walk-up music for you, Blaine.
Well, we had some fancier intros. We had budget cuts, so no music.
Oh, okay. No walk-up music for Blaine. Sorry, Blaine.
I thought that just means somebody has to sing.
Yeah, there you go.
You don't want to hear us sing, so.
Yes, we got to give a good shout out to Jim Tam, who was our editor, kind of director behind the scenes. He did a great job for us, and really appreciate that. And we'll hope to be back with him very shortly on things. But today's recipe is pineapple grilled salmon.
Ooh. A
sweet recipe for salmon on the grill is sure to please. And if you haven't made this recipe, if you like salmon, this is a great one for the weekend to do here. Not too much. It serves 4. So obviously, if you're having more over, you got to get more salmon and do more. But ready in about 45 minutes. This is by Becky. And
this is a Becky recipe?
From the Hempress?
Whoa, Becky. Okay.
Yeah.
That's Blaine's wife, by the way. So
yeah,
she's the real brains in the operation. So
I'm not going that far. For sure. Anyways, pretty simple. 1 pineapple, some salmon fillets, teriyaki sauce with honey, rice, water, salt, grape tomatoes, garlic clove, jalapeno peppers, Lucipac lime, and of course the all-important hemp seeds, which make it a yummy, yummy almond flavor, that's for sure. There's the step-by-step instructions, pretty simple to work with pretty much there. And if you're looking for something a little different than the hamburger and the hot dogs for the weekend, this is a great, great recipe for that. So,
any idea where we can get hemp hearts at, Blaine?
I'm not
Well,
sure,
yeah,
but I know
softball
a
there.
great place that you can do it if you go to downonthefarm.biz. This is our shameful plug, right?
I've heard of
You
that.
can find them there, and we can ship them right out to you. So
Okay.
we have different size bags. So absolutely, yeah,
Excellent.
that's right. And we're getting ready to make some new oil this next week. So
Well,
yes, we
and
are.
Hunter, thank you for playing with us today. What's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
Definitely by email, hunter@agpolicysolutions.com. That's a great way to reach me. I would love to see if there's some other states out there that want to replicate some of the good work that I'm hearing in Michigan. And let's definitely talk about that, Blaine. That'd be great.
Okay. Well, next week we'll get through the holiday here, and I definitely got to figure out how we can get this moving here in Michigan with the hemp feed. So awesome. And there's the email.
I'm going to try that salmon recipe this weekend. I was looking for something different to put on the grill.
There you go.
Yep, that pineapple gives it that really nice
Well, that's
flavor.
one of my favorites, pineapple. Yeah. So.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining today, playing along. Everybody be safe out there. It's going to be a fun weekend and a hot weekend here. We're looking at 90 degrees next week. So
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And we're talking frost warnings tonight. So, take your pick. What do you want?
Yeah, it's Michigan. You got to love it. It's just never know what the weather is going to be.
Hunter, always a pleasure. We love visiting with you.
Thanks, you guys. I appreciate the banter always.
All right. Well, everybody have a great Memorial Day. 2 weeks before we're back?
Yep. And the next show we should have on, we're going to be a real interesting show. We're going to be talking about safe haven homes. For those of you that are familiar with iHemp, we've been working with a young lady by the name of Jessie D. Decker. No relation to James D. Decker, but she has immune deficiency systems where any house that she lives in is actually kind of poisonous to her because of the materials that are made. And we've got some real legs on developing a home for her. We're going to be talking about that, and they'll be soon announcing a little fundraising campaign to make that happen for her. So we're really excited. Most of the material in the house will be hemp or hemp-derived products of some kind. So we're just excited to share that and let everybody know. There's so many people, you don't hear about this very often, that have this problem. Some people are actually living in their cars because they just have nowhere else to live without really being affected by it. So we're really excited to see here, and we'll have Jessie and her mom, Lori, will be on the show for sure. So,
all right, everybody, have a good one.
All right.
Everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Hunter.
All right.